Hi guys, it is Danny and welcome to this evening update. I hope that you have been enjoying your Sunday and you're getting ready for this brand new week. And so we're going to be talking about the tropics. The focus is on 94L, so you would have seen it from the thumbnail. Why a weak system failing to develop in the expected time could be bad news. Notice the word could. That does not mean it is a guarantee. So we'll be looking at that. We'll also briefly talk about Sean, which is maintaining tropical depression status for now, but should become a remnant low very soon. And we'll also be talking about what is currently happening across sections of the Caribbean. So let us get straight into it. And we're kickstarting things looking at the Atlantic. So we're going to talk about Sean and 94L in a moment. But first, we want to go to the general view here and then zoom into the vicinity of the Caribbean and other surrounding areas. So here we can see that across the Caribbean, we're seeing some of those spots of those white dots. That is indicating lightning strikes. So there are some thunderstorms across some areas today. Even looking over into the Eastern Pacific, where there are actually some disturbances, there is some activity. Over in the Bay of Campeche, we're seeing a lot going on. So definitely some activity over there. And then in sections of Central America, going down to Northern South America, there we can see some thunderstorms popping up across many areas today. Some spots in Colombia as well as Venezuela, headed to Guyana. Much not going on over in Suriname. Bit of convection just in the vicinity of Trinidad and Tobago right there. But for most of the Lesser Antilles, there isn't anything too crazy happening. ABC Islands in the clear for now. As we look into parts of Central America, we can see Panama, sections of Costa Rica, as well as Honduras and Nicaragua as well. We can definitely see that there is some activity there. Let's head further up north, and there we have it. So across most of the region, for most islands, there isn't anything too crazy. We could see some more thunderstorm activity developing, but we can definitely see that for parts of the Yucatan, of course, headed to Cuba, parts of Jamaica, especially in some northern parishes, not everywhere, even in parts of Hispaniola as well, and up through the Bahamas, a bit of thunderstorm activity across these areas. So for some of us, there is some inclement weather conditions. Even in my area here in St. James, Jamaica, there is some thunderstorm activity developing, and for other areas, it has been a very hot and dry day. Now we're going on to our active system, Sean, which should dissipate very soon. So here we are taking a look at it, a close look, and we can see that it is definitely barely hanging on as a tropical cyclone. So it is sustaining those winds at around 30 miles per hour or 45 kilometers per hour, and it is making its way to the west-northwest at 12 miles per hour or 19 kilometers per hour. So that's the speed at which it is moving, but the sustained winds are 30 miles per hour. So it's still a tropical depression, but should become a remnant low tonight. And to depict that, here we are looking at this surface chart. So this is the forecast for Wednesday of this week, the 18th of October. There we can see that L representing that low pressure area associated with 94L. We see possible tropical cyclone label. It's not a guarantee, and by the way, it's not looking too good. There we have that high pressure system, which is the reason it's steering to the west. But notice that front. So that's a stationary front. There we see the triangle, and then the semicircle that shows a stationary front. And then that trough, that broken line, that is representative of whatever is left of Sean. Let's go ahead and now talk more about 94L. Here is the latest update as of 2 p.m. Notice something? The formation chance has decreased. So it was at 90%. Now it is down to 80%. I mean, still a high chance of development. And some models are even suggesting that it will fail to become anything very significant. But again, it could mean bad news. Even through the next 48 hours or the next 2 days, that chance has gone down. I mean, in my update this morning, it was at 70%. Now it is down to 40%. So that chance has decreased to 40%. And definitely seeing that on satellite, the system is not looking too good. Let's take a closer look at it. There we can see it. Definitely not seeing anything defined whatsoever. Just a broad low pressure area out there with all this disorganized shower and thunderstorm activities. And conditions ahead might not be the most conducive to allow for quick development of it. I mean, it could try to get itself together eventually, but in the short term, I'm not expecting this to become anything much, simply because of how it is looking awful right now and how conditions are not highly conducive out ahead of it for the short term. So let's go ahead and take a look at what some models have to show, after which we'll talk about conditions. So let's kickstart things looking at the GFS GFS. So this is Thursday of this week. There you can see that system approaching the Caribbean. So in the update this morning, the 0Z update, it showed the system actually making that close approach into the vicinity of the Leeward Islands. So let's head further out. This is as we go on to Saturday of this week, headed to the end of this week. There's that front and there's the system. So GFS not showing a very strong system out there, and then eventually it shows it missing the Caribbean, and then as it curves up to the north, take a look at that pressure. So that is when GFS is expecting that it will have a window of opportunity to intensify potentially into a hurricane if conditions favor that to happen. And then over in the Gulf and the Western Caribbean, we're seeing all of that increase in moisture. So all those colors, those greens, yellows, reds, they indicate all that moisture, that precipitation rate. As we head even further out, now this goes very, very, very far out. This goes out to Saturday of next week, the 28th of October. We're bound to see changes here. Other models do not go as far out compared to GFS, but here GFS is hinting that, hey, we could see something form in the Gulf during the latter of October. Only time will tell. Let's head on to the Euro model. So 94L is the focus. As we head to Thursday of this week, headed to the 19th of October, there's that high pressure area. Eventually, Euro, take a look at this. Euro is not showing development, but it has the system moving mostly west with all that disorganized activity. So that would be a concern, because we don't need a tropical depression or tropical storm to bring dangerous impacts. Tropical waves can do as much. They can actually cause impacts that are equivalent to that of a tropical storm. So if we're talking about something that has not reached that status but is producing a lot of activity, then there could be impacts. And the weaker system tends to head further west. That's the trouble here, because Euro at one point was showing that the system would be strengthening and making its way out, missing the Caribbean. Now it is backing off from that, showing a weaker, less organized system making its way through. And though some areas are in need of that rainfall to help with the drought conditions or just the heat on a whole, a lot of heavy rainfall can cause flooding, and that is a life-threatening scenario there, because floods are dangerous. They jeopardize life and property. So that would be a major concern here with the system. But now let's go ahead and take a look at some other models. Now Icon, on the other hand, is showing that we will in fact have something approaching the Caribbean, a tropical storm. So again, this is likely to become Tammy. That's the next name on the list. That front not coming down quite yet. So this is still under that influence of mostly that high pressure system out there, steering it west straight into the vicinity of the Lesser Antilles, even going to the vicinity of the Virgin Islands as well. This is Sunday of next week, a week out from now. There we see that front. Eventually we see that turn up to the north expected of the system. And notice how lopsided all these colors are, not symmetrical around that entire L or that low pressure center right there. So that is suggesting the work of some wind shear. Canadian model also expecting that the system will move in as a tropical storm, bring some impacts to portions of the northeastern Caribbean before making its way out and further intensifying. So here we have some models showing that, hey, it could make its way in as a tropical storm and bring those impacts, those dangerous impacts, even though they would help a bit as it relates to the droughts. As I said, they could still induce flooding. That's going to be a concern. And I would say that the Lesser Antilles, especially the Leeward Islands in particular, the Virgin Islands, maybe even Puerto Rico, should keep watch for potential impacts this weekend, this coming weekend headed into early next week. Not a guarantee. I'm not saying that it will in fact happen for you, but it is a possibility. As we head on to conditions, we know that the waters are off the charts. We're seeing most of these reds and these shades of pink, indicating temperatures up to 29, 30, 31, even 32 degrees Celsius in some isolated spots. So that is going to be fueling the system, but that's not the only factor. We're going on to the wind shear map now, where we see all those red lines indicate unfavorable shear. That is what helps to rip these systems apart and prevent them from growing and intensifying much. So strong wind shear keeps these disturbances weaker and prevent development or much development of them. For now, we're not seeing the shear being too bad in the vicinity of the system, but again, not seeing much organization of it. Just to the east of the Lesser Antilles, we're seeing some of those red lines. So the shear might not be the most conducive. We're not seeing that all those green lines being very dominant as of that latest update. And then going on to the dry air map, in those areas of all those oranges, yellows, reds, that is indicative of that dry air. Dry air, not a huge problem. So it has a window of opportunity to get itself together, maybe becoming at least a tropical depression. But again, a weaker system will tend to trend more to the west. So again, islands in the northeast should be keeping watch for this weekend. And so one final thing before I conclude this update. So notice that even with this graphic from the NHC, that shaded area, which is also representing the track of the system, is not curving out. It is showing that west to west northwest track. It is not hinting at that curve out very soon where the system could miss the Caribbean. So that has consistently been showing that general track headed toward the basin and not necessarily turning away. But an eventual turnout is expected because, of course, all those fronts are coming out of the US. There will be that window of opportunity for the system to actually make its way out. So I will keep you guys posted, and that is pretty much what I wanted to share with you in this update. So I hope you found it to be quite informative, and if you have any questions, please do leave them in the comments. I'll respond when I can, and remember to always be weatherwise.